Hey guys, it's Shane again. This time I'm going to be bringing you my defensive top 5 from each position. Before I start, I just want to reiterate, follow me on Twitter, Shane P. Hallam. You can get any updates from me as far as prospects. You can ask me questions, I'll answer them. It's probably the best way to get in touch with me if you want to do that. But right now I wanted to get the defensive top 5 because I really haven't made a video about defenses yet, and those are actually some of the more fun prospects to take a look at. So I wanted to get this out there. So let's just go and get started. Let's start with defensive ends. My number 5 defensive end is Ricky Sapp out of Clemson. And some of these defensive ends are guys that might make that transition to linebacker, especially in a 3-4. And Ricky Sapp is one of those guys who's an elite pass rusher, someone that if you need a guy to get to the quarterback, Ricky Sapp's a guy you can look for in round 2 and maybe even late in round 2 and find really a gem in him. So I like Ricky Sapp a lot. Number 4 is Brandon Graham, defensive end from Michigan. And Graham is kind of in a similar situation. He's an undersized defensive end, high motor guy, high character guy, type of player you want on your team, but where can he fit? That becomes a question. I think his best fit will come in a 3-4, like ex-teammate Lamarr Woodley in Pittsburgh, who's done extremely well. I think that's what you're going to see from Brandon Graham. So look for that. Number 3 is Jerry Hughes, defensive end from TCU. And Jerry Hughes is another guy probably going to make that transition to outside linebacker. A lot of these defensive ends that we have high up are going to do that. That's the way the NFL is working, getting undersized pass rushers. I'm not sure if Jerry Hughes can hit at the point of attack against the run, but I really like him as a pass rusher. So that's why I have him as high as I do. Extremely productive at TCU. Obviously, they've been a very good team this year. Number 2 is Greg Hardy from Ole Miss. Now, Greg Hardy may fall a little bit because he's had some injuries. We'll see how he does in the bowl game. He's supposed to be back, kind of play. And other than the injury-prone tag, this guy's an absolute monster. But you may get a guy that just can't stay on the field. So that's the risk you take if you take Greg Hardy. He can be a base, 4-3 defensive end, one of the best in the class. Number 1 is Wootton from Northwestern. And he's a Justin Tuck type of defensive end. You don't see those too much anymore in the NFL draft. A guy that can play defensive end. Maybe he can move inside on third down situations to rush the quarterback. Move to D tackle. Big guy. Great against the run. Also has some pass rushing repertoire. So I like Wootton out of Northwestern a lot. He's my number 1 defensive end as seniors. Remember all these guys are seniors. Not doing underclassmen yet. Once they declare, I'll put up a first-round mock draft here on YouTube, and then we can start talking about those guys. Let's move on to defensive tackles. My number 5 defensive tackle is Lamarr Houston, D-tackle out of Texas. Kind of underrated right now, which is surprising for a Texas prospect, but I want to see if he gets an invite to a postseason all-star game. If he shows up there, he could do really well. Number 3 is Dan Williams out of Tennessee. Guy that's helped his stock a lot, maybe gone from a 5th-round pick to a possible 1st-round pick, and he's a nose tackle. He's a guy that can play nose tackle. You can kick over to UT if need be. So if you're a 3-4 team, wants a nose tackle, Dan Williams might be a steal late 1st, early 2nd like Ron Brace was last year in Boston College. Number 3 is Odrick from Penn State. This is a guy that I think can be perfect for a lot of different schemes. He can work as UT in a lot of 4-3 schemes. He can move to a defensive end in a 3-4. I think if he really showcases himself well, and continues to, he played well against LSU. He's continued to play well. I really like his chances of moving up draft boards in the 1st round. Number 2 is Terrence Cody out of Alabama. Mount Cody, giant guy. Gonna play in a 3-4. Probably not too well suited for 4-3. But he really reminds me of maybe even a Casey Hampton type of prospect who is there to eat up space, take 2 to 3 blockers every play, and you're going to stop the run. And he's going to be a cog in a 3-4 defense for a team. So if I'm a team like the Steelers or like the Patriots, really don't need it right now, but any team that's moving to a 3-4, or that needs that step up of a big guy that can take on people, I'm looking at Terrence Cody. And number 1 obviously is Ndamukong Suh, probably the number 1 senior prospect on my board. Absolutely dominant. He can play in any type of system. Play nose tackle, he can play under tackle, he can play 3-4 defensive end. Look, Ndamukong Suh could be guy that steps in day 1's dominant. The St. Louis Rams take him number 1 overall. I don't know. Maybe they take a quarterback and he falls to Detroit at number 2. And if I'm Detroit, I'm hoping, because Ndamukong Suh is a really, really great player. To the outside linebacker. Number 5, Dekoda Watson out of Florida State. Guys impressed me against West Virginia in their bowl game. He's an undersized linebacker who's actually pretty good at rushing the passer, which you don't see too often. So look for Dekoda Watson. We'll see how he does at the combine and whatnot. Maybe he can help his stock a little bit. Number 4 is Roderick Muckelroy from Texas. Texas outside linebacker. Muckelroy is kind of your typical outside linebacker. He can cover pretty well. He's done well in coverage. He can rush the passer at times. Pretty good against the run. Solid guy that probably won't start for a team. Could come in as a rotation and do well there. Number 3 is Norwood out of South Carolina. This guy's another one. It's going to be in a 3-4, probably outside linebacker, but he doesn't have transition from defensive end, so it could help him a lot. Norwood is kind of reminiscent of James Harrison type of player. That's, pass rush, can back up, makes big plays. That's what he's known for. So Norwood could be a steal in the second round for a team. Number 2, Sergio Kindle out of Texas. Guy that was a defensive end last year's, at times as a junior, even a little bit this year as a senior. He's moved linebacker, moved defensive end. He's moved all around their defense. He's probably going to be a linebacker in the 3-4. I feel like he's like a typical Baltimore Raven type of guy. Rush the passer, can be used in a variety of ways. He's had kind of a down senior year. We'll see how that affects him. And then my number 1 guy is Sean Weatherspoon out of Missouri, who I feel could fit in most systems. Great tackler, great fundamentals, just an excellent player that can go sideline to sideline with runners, with tight ends. Just can do it all. And I think Sean Weatherspoon right now is an underrated prospect. Really, I think he compares with some of the outside linebackers that we've seen in recent years that have gone pretty high, but he's not really getting talked about. He's been moving to 20s and even the 30s sometimes, so I think he'll rise up draft boards a little bit. Inside linebacker real quick, number 5, Sean Lee out of Penn State mold. Solid tackler. He's not fast. He's not flashy. Who knows, he's not going to be a dynamic player, but he's going to be a solid player in the NFL. Number 4, Amaka Johnson from Kentucky, who is probably never going to be a starter in the NFL, but I like him as a rotation guy and come in, give you some great depth. Number 3, Pat Angerer from Iowa, kind of similar to Lee. I think he has a little bit more upside, but probably going to be a solid in-the-middle tackle machine type of guy. Number 2, Daryl Washington, TCU, and Daryl Washington is a guy that I think has that upside. He's very athletic, very big, a wide range of stuff that he can do. So I like Daryl Washington a lot. I think he can work on a 3-4 as well, maybe inside, and do those plays. And the number 1 is Brandon Spikes from Florida. Hasn't had the best year. He's probably going to fall a little bit. None of these guys might go in the first round. We'll see about Spikes. But another guy that I think is best fit, 3-4 inside linebacker, is big, can make those sure tackles and get back in coverage. Corners, number 5, Myron Lewis from Vanderbilt. And I think Myron Lewis is just really athletic, can do a lot of different things. High upside guy, which might take a little bit late. Not the best in coverage. Number 4, Devin McCourty from Rutgers. A guy I didn't really like coming into the year, but he's really impressed me with his range and ability. And his coverage skills have improved a lot. So for Devin McCourty is kind of a sleeper. Number 3, Brandon Gee from Wake Forest, who's played really well this year. And I think he's a guy that's going to go in the second round, under the radar right now, but very good in man coverage and good physical corner. And that's what teams want these days. They want guys that can jam at the line and disrupt routes. Number 2, Parrish Cox from Oklahoma State. Got suspended for Oklahoma State's bowl games. We'll see how that affects him, but I've been impressed this year and he's moved up my board. Number 1, Patrick Robinson from Florida State. Hasn't had the best year. I really didn't have him number 1 on my board for a while, but he showed his speed. I thought he was going to be more of a cover corner, but he's looking more like an Antonio Cromartie type of cornerback. So we'll see. That might be his role in the NFL. Safeties to end up. Number 5, Harry Coleman from LSU. Big play guy who can kind of do everything. So I like Harry Coleman. 4, Darryl Stuckey from Kansas. In the box type of safety. Number 3, Cam Chancellor from Virginia Tech. Very similar. In the box. Big guy, not going to cover very well, but he can be in the box, and teams are starting to move to that. We saw that last year with the draft. Number 2, Nate Allen from USF, who's a playmaker, flat out. And the number 1 is Taylor Mays from USC. He has the physicality. He has all the ability. So Taylor Mays is going to be a very good player. I think I'll see how he does in the Senior Bowl, but I think Taylor Mays can be a good player if he learns how to work himself as a football player, not just as an athlete. So he's going to need a lot of coaching, but I think he can be successful